Hello and welcome to this supporting video for your work, for your English Challenge work today on non-chronological reports. This video is going to go over a couple of different things. It's going to very briefly go over different ways that you might plan your non-chronological report. It's then going to go into a kind of more detailed analysis, talking you through the way I planned it with the example plan that I gave you, which is a more complex type of planning. And then we're going to finally compare my plan, my planned PDD paragraphs with the final outcome that I created. And I'm going to talk you through some of the choices that I made. Okay, so I'm currently looking at my plan. Now this is a very, very detailed plan. I've structured it this way so that I know I've covered everything and to really just show you how you could set out a plan. There are some alternatives that you could have to this very structured plan. So you might simply want to do a mind map, where you're just going to mind map the different elements. So you might have me in the middle, and then you might have little pictures just showing the 3 or 4 different areas you want to write about. So, you know, hobbies, maybe your hobby is to do with tennis, so you might draw a tennis racket. And then from there you might get your facts, which are spearing off. Maybe you do another one for food, so I'm just going to draw a banana because that, you know, makes me think of food, and then you'd have your facts spearing off there. That's a valid type of plan that you could use, and again you can use pictures instead of words. I would probably still dot in a few words there, especially when you start thinking a little bit more about what conjunctions you might want to use, but that's perfectly good. You could use a mind map. You could do, you know, very simplified kind of box diagrams of things about what you want to say. You might just do bullet points, bullet point notes. I'm going to have my subheading is going to be fantastic food, and then I'm just going to put down here, these are going to be my kind of sub bullet points, you know, fact 1, fact 2, fact 3, etc. Do a bullet point list, draw pictures. You can set out a plan however you like, really. It's just got to work for you. I've done my plan, as I said, in order to structure it out the way that I quite like doing things. I've also done it as a kind of template for the visual layout. Maybe that's how I will have my boxes of content when I come to do it finally. Takeaway message there, really, as I've said, you can plan however you like. You need to plan with what's comfortable with you or works with you, which involves a bit of experimentation. Maybe you're someone who needs to write down a lot of things in a plan because you will forget those ideas later. Maybe you're the kind of person who just needs to jot down a few ideas because they've got it all in their head and they're ready to carry that forwards. Okay, so this part of the video is going to be me doing a more in-depth analysis of my plan. I'm going to talk you through why I've done certain things and how I've done them. So, started off, I've just got a title in the middle. I've sketched out a title, Marvellous Me. It's not too crucial. I wouldn't get hung up on a title. It's one of those things which you can always change at the end. Similar for subheadings. Your subheadings could be as simple as, you know, family, hobbies. It doesn't have to be the kind of final product, or maybe the final fancy subheading that you want to use with alliteration or whatever other technique that you like the sound of. You can have it rough and ready. It's not a finished product. As you can see, I've stretched them out in P, D and D, and if you remember my previous video a couple of weeks ago about PDD, I talked a lot about the fact that really, because we want you to connect sentences using conjunctions when we're doing PDD, you end up actually needing 4 facts per paragraph. So that's why in this plan I've put 4 bullet points and I've put 2 bullet points per D, so that I've got a related fact or 2 facts that I can link for that one sentence, because obviously when I link them with a conjunction they are no longer 2 sentences, they are a single sentence with 2 clauses. one thing that I definitely insist on, or rather I advise quite strongly, is that you start with your P sentence, and as part of the plan, it's about the only part that I really advise that you write as a full sentence, even if you come back and draft it, because that P sentence is so important for giving you the direction for what should follow. And what I mean by that is, if we look at the first one, I've got P. My immediate family consists of 5 people: myself, my 2 brothers, and my mum and dad. So that is telling the reader that everything that follows has to be about this idea of family. Has to be something about my brothers, my mum and dad, something about my family. All my facts have to suit that sentence. So, if any of these facts in the D do not, I need to get rid of them. That P sentence is crucial then for helping make sure your paragraphs are tight, that they don't wander off and they don't introduce ideas that don't belong there, essentially. And they don't have to be really complex sentences either. So if we look down here at the when I grow up P sentence, when I was younger, I wanted to be a paleontologist. Really simple sentence. It's not expressing complex ideas. Yes, it's using a fronted adverbial. I could have it, I wanted to be a paleontologist when I was younger. It's a simple sentence, but it tells the reader what the rest of that paragraph is going to tell me about. Okay, so looking down in the D, you can see I put really simple notes. It shouldn't be a case that you're writing a sentence. What I am doing though, and this is an important skill, is that as I'm putting these facts down, I'm thinking of the sentence in my head. So where I've got mum equals LSA Key Stage 1 children here, in my head what I've done is I've created the sentence, my mum is an LSA for Key Stage 1 children. I've decided to link mum and dad for this, and I'm talking about what jobs they do. So I've started with mum, LSA, dad, delivery driver, and he delivers parts. I've linked these facts. They're about similar things, aren't they? I've got one talking about my mum's job. The second part of that D is talking about dad's job. It's about jobs. After I have started to think about what conjunction I might be able to use. So this bit in brackets at the front in bold, the while, was not something I wrote down first. I came back and put it in afterwards. And I actually was thinking about the Greta Thunberg thing that we did 2 weeks ago, and we used a while there in their example, because they had something along the lines of, mum used to be an opera singer while dad was something, I can't remember what. But I liked the use of the conjunction while. So can I fit it in here? Off the top of my head, mum is an LSA because just one children, while dad is a... Yeah, okay. That kind of works. So I'm mentally, in my head, thinking about what the sentences might look like when I come to write it. This D, well, I'm talking about my brothers. Middle brother has his own family. I'm an uncle. So it links. So my middle brother has his own family, so he's got a daughter. I don't need to add that in because I know it. This plan isn't for anybody else, it's for you. This helps to prompt me to remember that my middle brother has a daughter. So I'm an uncle, which makes me an uncle. So in this case, I probably did think of the conjunction first. Middle brother has his own family, has a daughter, which makes me an uncle, is probably the sentence that I might use. 2 different ways of thinking about things there. In the first D, I had my 2 facts and I had to think about afterwards how I might join them. Here I had 1 fact and then I thought of a conjunction to help me with what I might do for the second fact to develop that D. Okay, so I'm doing similar things in the other 2 PDD plan templates. So number 1 I've put, something I like to do, I like to do photography. I like doing photography and I like going outside to take photos. That's a simple idea. And then I just put because. Now I know I can probably come up with a because sentence without planning that at all, so I've left it blank. When I come to write it properly, my non-chronological report, I know that I can come up with an answer to that. I know I can think of a because. So I've left it in my plan. Don't need it. I know I've linked it, used a conjunction. Mr. Robson will be happy with me. Bish bash bosh. Moving on. In this final part of the video, I just wanted to show you the end product of my plan and talk to you about how I made certain decisions and why things look the way they do, because when you're just looking at it on paper, it doesn't reveal everything that I was thinking and why there are certain differences or similarities. I think the trap we often fall into is that we make a plan and we think we have to follow it exactly, or you look at something and you think, oh, Mr. Robson's done that in one go, oh, he's an expert, he's done it all immediately. But that's not the case. You can't see it because I've typed it, which is one of the problems with typing, but writing these paragraphs, they underwent changes, I made revisions. If I'd been writing on paper, there'd be quite a bit of purple pen. And it's all about that process of reading and listening to yourself and what you're saying and what your sentences say so that they make sense, and using that PDD plan as your guide, knowing what you've got to get. I'm going to talk through two of the paragraphs that I made, which are also in your challenge pack for today, so you can see them yourself, and you're free as well to use them as a model. And what I mean by that is you're free to magpie phrases, you're free to magpie sentence structures, so if you like the way I've put words, the order of the words, then you're free to use that. As we look across them, what's really nice about having this really structured plan, first off, is the fact that I'd already written my P sentence. So I didn't change any of my P sentences because they were perfectly fine. They introduced the paragraph and they did what they were supposed to do. So my immediate family consists of 5 people: myself, my 2 brothers, and my mum and dad. Ka-ching. Brilliant. And I love not having to worry about that first sentence, which can always be a bit of a doozy and a bit of a sticking point. But I've already got it because I've already thought of it. That might be an opportunity to maybe jazz it up a bit, because you could, maybe originally you had my immediate family consists of 5 people, so maybe you could have extended it like I did, but either way. My mum works as an LSA with Key Stage 1 children, while my dad is employed as a parts delivery driver for Nissan. Unlike my eldest brother and I, my middle brother has his own family, which includes my 6-year-old niece and my sister-in-law. So if I look over at my plan, if you remember, or if you saw on the earlier part of the video, this first D sentence, talking about my mum and my dad, I had already mentally rehearsed this sentence, and I didn't really change it at all. I had the 2 ideas, where my mum worked, what my mum does, what my dad does, and I was going to link them with the conjunction while. And it hasn't changed. My mum works as an LSA with Key Stage 1 children, while using that conjunction. My dad is employed as a parts delivery driver for Nissan. All I've done there is turn my notes into a full-fledged sentence, and rather than reuse the phrase works as, I've gone a bit fancier and gone is employed as. So I've used a different phrase to avoid repeating myself. And I've just added in an extra bit of fact here because I already knew it, that it's parts for Nissan. Simple. The second D, I think, is where the most change happened. And it happened for a reason. I really wanted to use unlike and have this introductory phrase, unlike my eldest brother and I, because I wanted to talk about how my middle brother was different. So unlike is a good word for that. And that idea of my middle brother being different was already involved in that first D bullet point, because I was talking about having his own family. I wanted to use that, but it didn't make sense to me to say, unlike my oldest brother and I, my middle brother has his own family, which makes me an uncle. So I had to think of something else. I had to come up with another idea. I wanted to use which still, because I like that conjunction. So I ended up with, unlike my oldest brother and I, my middle brother has his own family, which... because I was talking about his own family, I thought, well, if I was reading that, I might want to know more detail about that family. So who is in that family, that extended family of mine? Well, that includes my 6-year-old niece and my sister-in-law. I've still involved the idea of me being an uncle because I've said niece, and I've even included a little cheeky extra conjunction and to add a bit of extra detail. So that's a really good example of where I haven't been precious about my ideas. And what I mean by that is I haven't tried to cling and try and force together, like mismatched Lego bricks, two ideas that really just aren't going to run together, or don't seem to run together in my head. And instead, I've had to, as I'm writing, doing the write-up, come up with a new idea, or arrange my ideas in an entirely new way that I hadn't thought of in my plan. I didn't think I would need to. That's fine. That's what really good writers will do. They don't stick to things that don't work. They're constantly thinking about what they're writing and what makes sense. Right, I'm going to move on to the second paragraph because this one is interesting because quite a lot of things happened here. This was a case very much of what I've been talking about, where revisions were made, quite a few. So, straight off, I'm noticing that the subheadings are not the same. One is After School Antics, one is Photo Fanatic. You'll notice then that I didn't talk anything about this point. This D has been lost to history. I kept the P, and I expanded the first D, talking about photography. I've talked about one of the things I love is going outside and taking photographs, so that was already here. And then I talked about my because, but I put that in a separate sentence. I think it's a fantastic hobby because it gets me outside and often closer to nature. And then I kept talking about photography still. There's nothing quite like the feeling of capturing a special moment, so I'm still talking more about why I like it. And I've given an example, like when two people high-five or when a squirrel makes a daring leap between the trees. Why have I done this? Is it because I thought, well, reading's really boring actually, nobody wants to hear about that? No. What happened was, as I started writing it, I found I had lots of things I wanted to talk about about how I feel about photography. I had lots of things I wanted to say that I could put into those complex sentences using a range of conjunctions. So I still made sure I had those, but I was just inspired to write about it. If you're inspired and really want to write about something in detail and in depth for your non-chronological report, do so. Remember that plan is not set in stone. You can take it or leave bits of it. And I always think if you're writing about something you're passionate about, it becomes more interesting. It meant I had to come back and make a few changes. I had to revise the heading because I couldn't really do After School Antics anymore because it felt like I'd focused more on photos. But the main point is, as I said, if you're inspired by something or something you want to write about it. And don't worry about trying to fit everything in your plan in if, when you're writing it, you've gone down a different path. That's also part of the process. But those really crucial things. A plan is personal. You don't have to make a detailed plan like I did. You can make a more simplified plan. What I want is for you to write some PDD paragraphs. So if your plan allows you to write those PDD paragraphs, fantastic. I'm looking for PDD, however you achieve it. For PDD paragraphs, I would recommend that you come up with 4 ideas. That's 2 per D. And I recommend as part of your planning that you think about conjunctions that you might use. As part of your planning, I recommend writing the P because it gives you direction. It lets you know that everything that follows, all those D ideas, have to link. to the P. Finally, and I think this is a core piece of advice I've talked about for the whole year, that writing process, if we remember, looks like this. It doesn't go like this. Do not grow too attached to particular ideas. Allow yourself to change things and alter things to make it work for you.